saw a tweet from Ed Werder, and I, of course, always reading Ed Werder's tweets, and it had something to do with the Cowboys. Ed is a Cowboy insider for WFAA TV in Dallas. Had to do with Deion, had to do with Jerry Jones, and maybe this is actually in the on-deck circle and could happen, and Ed Werder kind enough to join us. So you piqued my interest with this, so explain what your tweet was all about.
That was my one and only interest in tweeting, Dan, was to get your attention.
Thank you.
And to have an opportunity to make a long-awaited guest appearance on the show. If you want to play golf again, let me know.
Yeah.
So I've been obviously following the Cowboys, for a long time, but certainly throughout this season, and extending that coverage through the dismissal of Mike McCarthy, which I think surprised a lot of people, even those of us who cover the team on a regular basis. When you start configuring a list of potential candidates to be the next head coach, only in Dallas do you have to make sure to include Deion Sanders and Jason Witten, former Cowboys tight end great who Jerry is enamored with, who has only coached at the high school level. Regarding Deion, obviously we know that he has not yet formally interviewed for the job. The Cowboys have extended invitations to Leslie Frazier and Robert Saleh to be the first two to interview formally for the job. But Deion told Adam Schefter the other day that Jerry Jones reached out to him and they discussed the job. And everything I continue to be told, Dan, is that Jerry is interested. It was described to me as he's enamored with the idea. Obviously, it's hard to imagine any coaching candidate who could create more interest, someone that Jerry could more sell to the fan base here, which needs to happen, and make Jerry more money than Deion Sanders. I mean, he won a Super Bowl here as a player. So there are also people around Deion who tell me that he's being urged by his supporters in Colorado to take the job, and that they believe if Jerry ever does offer him the job, that he will take it, that he has an extension to remain at Colorado on his desk that he hasn't even looked at as he considers these other possibilities. But, there are also people close to Deion who tell me they don't see it happening, but they've seen things happen with Jerry Jones that they didn't expect to happen before. And he did hire Barry Switzer, so you can't rule anything out. He's the most unpredictable owner in the NFL on any subject, especially this one.
But do you think that Jerry Jones had somebody in mind when he was willing to let Mike McCarthy leave?
I assume that Jerry's done this enough times. This is his 8th time, that he knows before you let somebody who has some value and has proven himself to the degree, Mike McCarthy has as a head coach in this league with 2 different franchises, that you're sure you're going to get somebody who you think is going to do a better job.
Yeah, for some reason, and I was talking to Tim Cowlishaw, of course he covers the Cowboys, and he said Deion was treating this as if he was offered the job. Like his response was, hey, I'm honored or humbled or whatever, but I got work to do, as if he was getting the job offer. And then I thought, well, maybe is Jerry doing Deion a favor by, hey, we have some interest here, and that helps him even more with that extension at Colorado. But you think this is real? This is something that could happen?
I think it has merit, and I think when we're talking about Jerry and Deion, you always have to be wary of how this conversation could benefit each of them, and it certainly does. But I think there is a possibility of it happening. I mean, Deion apparently told Adam Schefter that he doesn't need to use the Cowboys as leverage to get what he wants at Colorado, that he's him. And that there's probably a lot of truth in that, given the effect he's had on that program and the attention he's brought to it and the money that's been dedicated to the program since then. But yeah, and I think a key figure, if this were to go very far, would be Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer was a defensive coordinator here this most recent season under Mike McCarthy. He coached under 5 head coaches in Dallas. And he has not decided what he's going to do in terms of whether he wants to continue coaching or not. I think a lot of that is dependent upon what direction Jerry decides to go in hiring the next head coach. And he would certainly, almost certainly, Dan, be a part of it if Deion Sanders is the coach, because Mike is very close to Deion. He coached him when he was here. He was close, so close to his program at Jackson State and then at Colorado that there were people speculating that Zimmer was going to be the defensive coordinator at Colorado. That never happened. But Zimmer made it clear during the season when we spoke to him that he does frequently still speak to Deion Sanders. So I'm sure he would be heavily involved in that. And it's interesting that he has made no mention or offered no decision on his future.
Okay, but we've talked about Jerry, and he hires coaches that are submissive and malleable, and that's not Deion. So is Jerry finally maybe coming around to that? I need to have somebody be a head coach, act like a head coach, and not be looking over their shoulder constantly.
Well, do you think that Jerry would think that there's not room for him to influence Deion Sanders, who's never coached at the NFL level, on how he views his best route to being successful? I think Jerry would see this as a very positive opportunity for him to influence the way Deion Sanders coaches Jerry's football team. Now, it was interesting that during the season, when Jerry was first asked about Deion, he praised him as one of his favorite players of all time and his competitiveness that he brought to the team. But he also sort of dismissed his value as a head coach in the NFL because he said what Deion offers now that's most attractive and most influences his success at CU in the college level is his ability to recruit. And that's not going to be a significant part of his success in the NFL should he opt to coach in the NFL. And that's true. I mean, he could influence free agents, but the Cowboys have not been heavily involved in free agency in recent years, to their own detriment, quite honestly. They were the last team to sign a player 4 out of the last 5 years. So it was interesting to me that Jerry thought that was the most unique ability Deion possessed, and that it would not be a significant factor in whether he succeeded at the NFL level.
Did Mike McCarthy want out?
That's not the sense I got. I mean, when the season ended, he was unequivocal and very public about the fact that his goal in the next few days was to remain in Dallas. He said he had made an investment in Dallas. The Cowboys had made an investment in him. I think his family wanted to be here. I sincerely think Mike McCarthy wanted and expected it to work out. And I don't know that we fully understand the real reasons it didn't.
Great to talk to you as always, Ed. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.